Well, welcome back. I want to thank everyone for tuning in again this morning. We have had about a 4-month recess for some personal reasons, but today we are back doing our first one for a while, and I am absolutely pleased to have as my first guest back just a wonderful veterinarian in the area. And I'm sure most of you know her. She has a great reputation. Dr. Susan Nelson, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. And a little bit about Dr. Nelson. She's a native of Western Pennsylvania. She attended Allegheny College and the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. She moved here to Vermont in 1990, so she's been here for a while. And like I said, I think most of you actually probably know her, but I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit about herself, a little bit about her personal life, and then we're going to talk about a lot of different things about healthcare in animals. I get so many questions in my practice as it relates to animals and chiropractic and things like that, and I thought it would be a great idea, even though this show has more been based on human healthcare, whether it's alternative or traditional healthcare, but I think it's just a great idea to have someone here, an expert here, who can actually talk about animal health, because I think we all now we love our animals, probably me more than I should. And I always have lots and lots of questions. You know, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? And I always want to know if am I hurting my animal or someone else is hurting their animal. So I think this is even though the show is based more on human healthcare, I think this is going to be a great show on addressing animal healthcare. So if Susan, you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, again, Dr. Susan Nelson. I moved here from Pennsylvania to Vermont in 1990, and I worked as a mixed animal practitioner, which basically means large animals and small animals, for about 18 years at Derby Pond Animal Hospital. Took a little hiatus to raise kids because it's a juggling act, and then recently got back into a small animal only practice that I started with my sister-in-law, Andrea Nelson, who is a licensed veterinary technician and sort of the brains of the outfit for running all the business end. So we're down on Prouty Drive, and we're loving seeing lots of dogs and cats. And what I feel is really interesting is the difference in veterinary medicine from when I started back in 1990 till now, when I got back into it just in the last couple of years. There's been a lot of changes in how people are taking care of their animals and what people are willing to pay for their animals, or what they're forced to pay sometimes for their animal care. And when Dr. Harris approached me about doing the show, I said, well, what do you want to talk about? And the only thing I sort of could come up with is there's so many times I go home in the evening and say, gosh, I wish my clients or the people in general knew this. So we came up with some topics that might help some people out as to what veterinarians wish the clients knew to do better for their pets. So.
When you talk about small animal as compared to large animal, I mean, what's the differentiation between the two? I'm talking about small animals being like cats and dogs,
exactly.
And large
small animals
like farm animals.
Small animals is basically anything that lives with you in your house for the most part, which actually can include like pot-bellied pigs, things like that. Although I don't know anyone who has that in the area. And large animals. Again, sheep, goat, cow, horses are most common. Again, outdoor pigs, food animals, and outdoor animals like the pleasure horses. So, veterinarians nowadays much more typically specialize in one category or the other. I started so long ago, way back when we were more of a do-it-all for every creature kind of practice. And that was fun, and I loved that in my youth. And the older I get, I miss being out on the road and doing farm calls, because there's a real unique aspect of how you interact with the clients, because it's a different creature in a different place in the family. Obviously, it's most of the time not a place in the family. It depends on what it's a business for many of the large animal owners. Whereas when we're talking small animal, this is every bit as much a member of the family as any two-footed person. So you have a little difference in dynamics in how you work with the patients.
Mm-hmm. So do you do any large animal at this point, or
Very
basically your
limitedly.
practice is more?
Because my practice has grown so much in the past year and a half, literally, since we've opened, I just don't find the time to get out and see the large animal calls. It used to be when we started, I had a little extra time and I could run out and see some of my sheep and goat clients or a couple of dairy clients. And I still do keep about 2 or 3 farms that are, most of the time can take care of things while I'm at my regular daytime job, and I can see them on nights and weekends just to fit them in. But it's pretty much small animal now.
So every once in a while you may make a house call?
I do, and I'm married to a farmer, so that I can't get away from cows too much.
Yeah, you have to tell me the story about your husband, Richard.
Richard.
Because you have 8 cats.
We have
and you were
8
telling me
cats,
that
and I
he's the
get
one that actually
blamed. Yes.
had brought back 7 of the cats out of the 8, which you think
Yeah.
would be you.
Most of my friends love calling me the crazy cat lady because I have so many. Well, I do love cats, but of all the 8, one of them is my responsibility for bringing them home, and the others were little kittens that my husband would find and say, well, take care of them and find a good home for them. And they found a pretty good home.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's amazing because in my practice I have my dog Kira who
Yes.
comes to my practice
Yeah.
every day, and Richard is not a small guy.
No, he's not the
pretty
type
big,
you think
burly
would.
guy. You wouldn't think that
He
he would
would
be
be
someone who
doting-
would bring back a little kitten
Oh,
that
no.
would have
That's his weak spot.
Okay. And in my practice, when I have Kira there, it's just amazing. I have all these big guys. They're like 300-pound guys, and it's amazing when you see them get down on the floor
And play with
and
him.
actually play with play with Kara and just pet her, and it's just it's an amazing bond
Yeah.
between the animal and
It is.
Kara, and it gives Kara so much more.
Yeah, it's a great
comfort.
leveler. You can see where everybody is the same regardless of what package they come in.
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people say that, and I want to get your opinion on that. And I'm going to use my dog Kira at this point. When some will say, well, a dog, we'll say an animal, and say an animal always knows an animal lover. Is that true? I mean, does a dog or an animal always kind of know?
I repeatedly watch animals work the crowd and go for the person who ignores them the most. So
Really?
I think, I think they have a good sense of, and of course, a lot of especially the younger animals who are just more into the give me all the attention kind of thing, go right for those animal lovers that drop down on the floor and want to, give them all the affection. But I repeatedly hear how relatives might come for a holiday and the dog will insist on sitting with Aunt Millie and pushing themselves on her, and she's the one who would really prefer not to pet the dog. And sometimes I do think that might be a bit of a ruse, like they're trying to act like this is not my interest, and down deep they probably really want to get down on that floor and roll with that dog too. But they're pretty smart, and I do really believe that animals are a lot like humans in that you will have those animals that really just couldn't care less whether we were around or not, and those that just are maniacal without their human around. So they come in all different packages.
Okay, I'm sure, just like
people.
we do.
Yep, we got crazy animals. We do have some crazy people. So
I have some of them in my practice, even though I love all of my patients.
Yeah.
They're all different.
They're all unique,
As
that's it.
yours are, I'm sure.
absolutely.
So, okay, so let's talk about some of the things that I know that you want
Right.
to address. And the first thing I know you wanted to talk about is what to feed your dog and cat and why. And again, that is, I don't know if it's me or it's something that has just blossomed the past couple of years, but I can't go into a store now and go down an aisle
That's
without
so right.
50 different types of food. Not only in packaged food, but canned food. And then the food that comes like little sausage things where you have to cut up, and
Yeah.
so obviously the food industry for animals has just blossomed.
Yeah,
So-
and of course, one of your fortes is nutrition and how you integrate that with your health, and so it is important for our pets to know how to integrate that. And that was one of the big questions when I got back into more day in, day out practice with dogs and cats. People always ask, what do I feed? Like there is one answer, and that's the biggest misconception. There isn't one answer, and it is overwhelming when you look at the shelves. And I think a lot of my clients are almost feeling cowed into buying the most expensive, organic, grain-free diets, and maybe that's not always necessary. And I look at it from a little bit of an older vet standpoint. I'm sure some of the newer vets coming out might have different opinions, but yeah, it's always great to eat the best that you can afford at that time. But remember, dogs and cats are carnivores. Cats are obligate carnivores. They really don't have a need for other foods other than meats. Dogs are more like humans. They're a little bit more ranging in what they need. And if you read some of the less expensive foods, and that actually, I should back up, less expensive foods versus the more expensive foods used to be a good indicator as to what you were paying for. You're getting what you pay for. I caution people to read the first 4 or 5 ingredients on every pet food can or bag. And if there's a lot of grains, especially corn, high up in it, you shouldn't be paying premium price for that food, or you are overpaying. Meat does cost more. Quality meat does cost more. I like people to ignore that crude analysis and don't worry about percentages. You're not a scientist. You don't have to be a scientist to feed your pet. So again, I'd like people to look at the ingredient list and look at the first 5 ingredients. Look at the quality of what you think that might be for your budget and what you think your pet likes or needs. Most of the time, every food I've ever seen on the shelf will be certified by AAFCO, AAFCO. I'm going to have you look it up because I might get the acronym wrong.
Okay.
But it's a feed council for animals. And most every food out there will be nutritious for the complete life of the animal. So it's a matter of quality of what you're getting. And I know one of the questions to me is byproducts. A lot of people poo-poo the byproducts. And some of the upper-end dog food and cat food companies have made it their mission to let them know that we don't put byproducts or corn in. And again, corn is not an evil thing. It's just hard for monogastric people to digest. If you're a cow, corn's a fabulous thing, but you've got 4 stomachs. You can do a lot with what's in the corn. So
I remember that from my, probably about 40 years ago in my biology, that
Yeah.
cows do have 4 stomachs.
Exactly. So
unfortunately,
they can handle that. And there's nothing wrong with eating corn. But the other thing I tell people to think about is when we eat corn or a bad day's worth of food, things that aren't the best for us, we usually offset that by eating better at different times. With our pets, if you look at it, we're feeding them the same thing every day. Day in, day out, we're opening that same can, that same bag, and maybe we change flavors. Rarely do I have clients come in and say that they buy 1 bag of this brand, then they try this one. Some animals don't do as well when they're jumping around from product to product and develop some upset systems. And others actually thrive on it. They get bored with one food and sort of enjoy the variety. Yeah, and so again, very unique to each pet. And so if you were only being fed McDonald's, don't mean to slam McDonald's, but if you were feeding something like that daily and didn't eat the variety that you get when you sometimes cook at home or eat at a different kind of a restaurant, that we're a little bit more forgiving to our own selves. And you have to realize that if you're feeding something that, I will tell you a product I'm not fond of is Old Roy, and it's because if you were a cow, you could eat Old Roy and get away fine. It's not optimal. And again, you can survive on far less than optimal, and that also means you don't have to buy something that about breaks your budget. I have people that are feeding their pets, they're probably spending more per day on their dog than I eat, when I spend on myself. So I'm a middle-of-the-road person, so find what you feel is a quality company with quality meats. Byproducts aren't that bad because they are inclusive of organ meat, and that's where most of your really trace nutrients are. Meat doesn't have calcium, so neither do the organs, just FYI, but a blended diet with a little bit of everything is usually best. I can't tell you any particular names of what I think one company's better. There's lots of, I'll call them mom and pop startup type of companies. That's why if you go online, you can see names I've never even heard of companies that are offering really good diets. And as long as they're putting in what they say, that's great. Smaller companies have less regulatory oversight at this point. They can sort of fly under the radar. So sometimes when you're going with your larger name brands like Purina, Hills, IMSU, Canuba, they're very large. They've been around for a while. So the government already knows what they're watching on them. And it's also a very big hit for them to take if someone finds they are lying about product or doing something not scrupulous. So they tend to be a little bit more reliable with their diets.
So again, in my business, I sell some supplements. I'm not big into supplements, but there's a certification process that people, some of these companies have to do in order to be certified by the FDA, and so what is in there is in there, the quality is in there, the purity is in there. Are there companies that are actually, you can look on the back and say, gee, this has been certified by such and such an organization, or is there really no certification within the field?
It's a little dicey. When I'm ordering supplements for some of my patients, I go with companies that either have a very long proven track record in veterinary medicine and also might make actual drugs that therefore have FDA and USDA oversight. So they're already online with knowing what's expected, and they know not to step out of bounds because there are pretty strong repercussions for their reputation as well as financial repercussions. Companies that are, you've not heard of them before, they can put their product out there and you just don't know if you're getting what you pay for. Like for pharmaceuticals, there are some like compounding pharmacies and some other smaller, again, online pharmacies that produce even supplements, not just medications, and they will be members of different councils. And you can Google that and check to see that that's something that our government has as a recognized entity. Because it's very easy for somebody to say this is certified by, and they'll ABC, and there might not really be an ABC.
Well, there may be one, but it may be someone's basement.
And I go back to when you see segments on TV shows like 20 Minutes or 60 Minutes or 2020, where they'll go into a drugstore and select half of the vitamins and supplements on the shelf, test them, and almost none of them have in what they say is in there or to the percentage that they are claiming. And we run into the same thing with pet foods.
Okay.
Not the foods, I'm sorry, the supplements and stuff
But
like
even
that.
in the foods, is there a certification that people can look at and say, geez, this has been certified by this company, and we know, I know you mentioned Purina, Ukanuba.
Right. The larger companies are, from what I've always read in my 27 years of doing this, the larger companies are a little bit more likely to fall in line and follow suit. For instance, one of the smaller companies that started out and had always good intentions, best food quality, trying to do best for their pets, they start getting popular. And next thing you know, their orders are, their demand is greater than what they're able to keep up with in their warehouses and their manufacturing. So sometimes, let's pick blueberries, just because I know it's a common thing in some of these higher end products. Nothing wrong with blueberries.
Because the antioxidants?
Exactly, yeah. And do dogs eat blueberries in the wild? Don't know. That it's not harmful. We know there's nothing toxic about a blueberry. But I'm just picking that as a random example that if they always included that in their diet, and all of a sudden it became a scarce commodity, they could not source it. The smaller companies tend to scramble, have less resources, grab a substitute product. It's not required that they change the label right away to reflect that they've changed what you're feeding the pet. And they've been caught with sourcing out or changing more important ingredients than a blueberry and creating some dietary problems for animals. But that doesn't mean that the big companies haven't done it too. I mean, I don't even know who makes Meow Mix, but a long time ago, Meow Mix failed to put in some of the essential nutrients that cats need to live that they can't metabolize or break
They
down.
failed to put them in even though it may have been on the label?
Well, it's an additive, and if it's not found in the food you're eating, you can't make it. Like, we can't make vitamin C. We have to eat vitamin C. Dogs and cats don't have to eat vitamin C. They can create it from other sources. But cats are unique, and they have a couple of amino acids that if it's not in their diet with adequate amount, they're going to suffer some problems. And Meow Mix was killing cats left and right before they realized, oh, we do not have enough of this particular ingredient in there. So mistakes are made. That wasn't somebody slipping up trying to do something underhanded. That was some terrible mistake that was made. But so mistakes do happen. Okay. But sometimes it's just a matter of a company doing the best they can, and then they get too big for what they're able to produce, and they just keep flying along by the seat of their pants.
Okay. Now, is there a percentage? Let's say I walk into a store and I want to get a balanced diet, for my dog. Is there a percentage of like grains to meat that I should be looking for, or it really doesn't matter? Do they need 10% meat, 90% grains?
Yeah, I don't know of a percentage. I mean, again, if you want to be the scientist and look at the percent of guaranteed crude analysis.
Well, that's the easiest. I just want to go in and say, okay,
well, if you did that, you'd see.
Susan said this is what I should
buy.
The
percentages of proteins are pretty in line, except when you have like a performance dog. Dogs that are out racing along, hunting, really burning the calories. Higher percentage protein often does them better. They maintain a better lean muscle mass.
Be meat protein as compared to vegetable
That's the difference.
Protein?
That's where I want you to go back to that label. If it's meat protein, they're going to. The idea is if I gave a dog a cup of meat, and that meat was tested to have this percent protein, and I gave him a cup of peas that had this percent protein. the ability for the animal to incorporate that protein is very different. So meat protein, they're going to be able to use most of that protein and put it into the bloodstream and use it. Whereas a pea protein, and same for corn, that's why I don't mean to disrespect corn, but it's got great stuff in it. But our ability to break it down into the molecular structure, absorb it, and put it into use in the body is lower. So those animals that are eating higher grains that we don't break down as well may have a little bit more voluminous stools, and there's your product going out the back door. Whereas a meat is, a meat is going to be better. So you're getting more into the animal of what you are buying in that bag, and the same for cats. Although cats and grains, again, a cat could live without carbohydrates and be fine. They just need fats and proteins. And if you watch any of your kitties go outdoors and hunt, when they eat a small creature, they often devour the insides too. They might leave one or two pieces, but organs are really important for balancing their meals. So I have many clients that home cook, and if you're just cooking meat and adding some vegetables for your pet, that's not enough. There's very little calcium in those diets, and we as humans tend to get a bit more dairy product to replace our calcium, or even take supplements. Dogs and cats have a pretty high calcium need, and you're not going to find that by just giving them chicken and steak and vegetables. And one other thing is just to be wary. I'm wondering where this will go. A lot of the companies that are newer are coming out with grain-free diets at a pretty good price, and that made me think low price,
Okay.
compared to what used to be out there advertising as mostly meat or grain-free. And when I read the label, I see they're using a lot of peas, and it's actually often the pea hull, and that's where most of the protein in the pea is. Well, again, that tests out in a laboratory. It doesn't test out in your Labrador. You're probably not going to get that percentage of protein in your dog. So if price still does have a little bit of an important deciding factor on what you're paying. If you're getting something that looks too good to be true, just like any product, it probably is too good to be true.
Okay.
So I love to see a lot of meats first. I'm not totally anti-byproduct. Some people think byproduct is only ground up wings and hooves. It's not. Again, think organ meat. And that's not to say that some of these other things aren't in there, but they are dogs and cats, and they're sort of not biased like we are. Like other countries do eat a lot more organ meat than the United States. So when I say organ meat, a lot of people might be wincing at that, but I don't eat organ meat. But
I mean, you don't like a piece of liver fried when you come home
not
at night
my
with
thing. Nope.
Yeah, well, me, I would never enter a house that's actually been had
Yeah,
liver in
exactly.
it, so-
But there are healthy things in there, but we
Oh,
try
I
to
know
balance
there are.
it by
I just
eating the
can't stand the smell of
vegetables.
it,
And
so.
yeah.
So, well, we could go on and on about this
Right.
loan, and I have at least another dozen questions about
Okay.
that, but I know we need to move on. And one of the things we wanted to talk about also is cats are not small dogs.
Yeah, and it's so easy for people when they're stuck with an animal ill on a weekend or a night and they have no one to call, is let's assume a dog is a person on a smaller version or a cat's a small dog. Cats really are very different for their metabolism. There's so many medicines we cannot give them that a dog would tolerate. And that being said, some dogs, there are some medicines that we take as humans that aren't safe for dogs. Thinking along the lines of common over-the-counters, like Tylenol. Tylenol is very fatal to cats and really not good for dogs. And
Is it because of a liver issue?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And cats actually, they do not basically own the same set of enzymes that detoxify these meds in their system. So dogs are more similar to us, so that it's harder to create an overdose situation for them. But that being said, like a dog could actually take Advil or ibuprofen, but it's
Even
going...
a small dog? Any dog?
No, any dog could, but they don't break it down as well, and its side effects are much worse. So we have their own version of one of the profens. Again, instead of ibuprofen, one of the most common ones used in dogs is carprofen. But if your cat's experiencing something where you feel they need a pain reliever, anti-inflammatory, to reach for any of those products in a cat is very dangerous. Tylenol is the worst, and again, it's not even a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. It's in its own category, which acetaminophen is the generic name. And most humans aren't even aware that acetaminophen is different from Advil or Motrin or aspirin even. So my recommendation is when you do feel like I'm going to give a supplement or a medicine that I can buy at Kinney Drug, no problem. It should be safe because I'm buying it over the counter. That doesn't mean it's safe for your pets, especially the cats. Always check with a veterinarian, and we'd be happy to tell you what you can and can't use just to get you by if you don't have something on your shelf that will work. And same for feeding. Cats will eat grains. They will eat fruits and vegetables. There's nothing usually harmful about that, but they are obligate carnivores, meaning much more strict adherence to needing a meat in their diet compared to dogs. So when you're buying cat food that's mostly corns and stuff, not great. Even when we send cats home with an injury, we're a little bit limited in what we can do for them pain relief-wise for the long term, simply because they go into toxic levels pretty quickly. So when in doubt, please call and ask your vet. It's safest.
Well, what if it's late at night? I mean, what if it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, you know your cat's, or you know, in pain, obviously they have more of a reaction than a dog would.
Right.
Is there a hotline? Is there a number that someone can call and get information without waking you out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning?
That is a hard question because, again, I started practice in 1990, and the norm at that time was most veterinarians took their own on-call and took care of their own patients. And that has been a really big departure. And it's slower to come for rural areas, so larger metropolitan areas were doing this long before 1990, and it has becoming the norm now for our rural area that most veterinarians will refer you to an emergency center. And that means these are veterinarians and fully staffed with technicians and all the equipment they need to do any type of basic medical procedures, but they only open up after hours when the rest of us go home and try to get some dinner and have a little bit of a family life and get some sleep. And so as an older veterinarian who needs more sleep, I am a proponent of the fact we're going that route.
Veterinarian, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, 27 years working. But it used to be I would take on call for anything at any hour of the night, and that meant some nights I never even got to bed, especially when we were doing large animal, because there's a lot more issues that can happen around the clock on a dairy farm. But if you have a problem and you call your regular veterinarian, most of them, if they're not taking on call, will direct you to the nearest emergency center. And that doesn't mean you have to go see them. They usually are available for a phone call to tell you whether they feel you can handle this at home until morning, until your regular vets open up. Certainly there's poison control numbers for animals. You can call them if your dog or cat has eaten something or you suspect what the symptoms you're seeing might go along with something that's a toxic ingestion. And of course there's that beautiful thing called the World Wide Web. And you see me smiling excessively.
It's true.
Yeah, I know people use it. You need to use it, but please be discriminating in what you read. Blogs aren't the best place to get accurate information. One of my favorite places that I'll send clients is Cornell University, which has a fabulous veterinary school, although I did not go there. They have a feline health center. They have a lot of fabulous articles. They even publish a newsletter for people very much into what's newest with dog care, dog medicine.
The e-newsletter that you get online, will they actually...
I assume that they probably have it online, and you can go to articles there. I actually subscribe to it. You can just, go to their, it's the College of Veterinary Medicine, Cornell University, and I can't even tell you the exact name of their journal, because unfortunately I do subscribe to a lot of journals. I'm old-fashioned. I like to get things in a paper form and read them at my leisure instead of being on the computer. But those websites that are what I call more reputable because they're research-based, that's a place you could go and look for some advice, and they don't have somebody staffing to answer a phone call, but some of the topics that you might put into the search bar would come up and answer your question if you feel you're not getting anywhere with an emergency on-call veterinarian. And I know, just to mention that, locally, by being here in the Northeast Kingdom, we don't have an emergency center that's closer than 1 hour. Again, some veterinarians will still take their clients for their own patients for emergencies, or at least talk them through, knowing, for instance, spoke with a wonderful lady last night who wasn't sure if she had an emergency, and what she was telling me and what we deemed the cat was showing us was not a life-threatening emergency, and bringing the cat in later today just to check things over. But it's good just to have that peace of mind that you're able to reach out to somebody and know that you're not under the gun. And by the same virtue, if you have a question you don't know, even please call during the daytime and say, is this a problem? Because one of the saddest things I run into is people who could have let us know earlier based on some of the odd things they were seeing. We could have jumped on it and saved an animal, let alone made it a much easier, less expensive outcome for them had they called and asked a question earlier.
Okay.
So.
Good. I think a lot of people got a tremendous amount of information.
Hope so.
Your information will be at the at the bottom, so I'm sure you're going to get it, hopefully,
Okay.
several calls. But again, thank you very, very much
You're very
for
welcome.
coming on.
My
this.
pleasure.